Coming up, we completely mechanically restore a beautiful automobile, and it's extremely satisfying. Oh, and a dog eats a chicken snack.
I'm so excited, so let's start.
A young lad named Me, Myself, and I set on a quest to restore an old V12 BMW that was rotting for 10 years in a French garden. 2 years and 5 months, or in other words, 8 episodes of meticulous restoring, cleaning, and assembly led to firing up the mighty 12-cylinder power plant for the first time in the last episode. In this chapter, our objective is to button up the suspension and brakes, lower the E31 down on the ground, and thus wrap up the mechanical restoration of Project Marseille. We are kicking off with the shocks. This is the very first iteration of electronic damper control, aka EDC shocks by BMW, that appeared on E32, E31, and E34. You get a little switch in the cabin where you can toggle between comfort and sport suspension settings. High tech for the 80s. As it's been a bit of a theme with this project, these shocks are NLA, can't be bought new anymore. But you needn't worry, as there's a company in Poland called Nagengas that can completely refurbish them. As you saw, mine are in desperate need of an overhaul, so to Nagengas they went. My expectations were high, and they absolutely delivered. You can see the entire process on their channel, but they stripped the shocks completely, replace and reproduce all worn out parts, powder coat the body, and test them after assembly. It's a very thorough and professional process. They repair shocks and steering racks for various brands and models, so check out their website, which you can find down below. Big thank you to Nagengast for their service and for giving me a nice discount and helping out with this project.
Freshly zinc plated plates, fresh hardware, and now we can assemble the shock. Good and twist. That's great. And this one is ready to go in. The shock going in, we have a paper gasket on the top. Pop this in. Now I'm going to start popping up the swing arm and then center the shock mount into the body. Beautiful. It's in. Now I'm going to start the nuts. So while doing this, it's also good to check for cracks in the shock mount area, because some of the early cars are known for that, especially if you go with aftermarket shocks that are too hard. It can kind of mangle up that part of the chassis. This one is clean, and I am waiting on some reinforcement plates to come from the US, which we're going to install later. Beautiful. The lower shock bolt, we have a bushing here, so we're just going to go finger tight for now, and then the final torque is done with suspension fully loaded. That'll do for now. We got to plug in the connector. That goes there. And then this box is slightly broken and it's no longer available brand new, so I'm going to use a zip tie to kind of keep it permanently into place. Excellent. Moving on with the front suspension, we have a brand new original BMW center link, and then the tie rods, they're currently only available from Lemforder. They're NLA from the dealer. And let me show you something really interesting here. It's actually quite sad. Lemforder back in the day used to be OE, made in Germany, fantastic quality parts. Nowadays, they moved their production all over the place and it's a hit or miss. This tie rod is made in Malaysia, as you can see there, and you can see that this bag is unopened. So let me open it, and then we are going to remove the boots from the ball joints and see how much grease is in there. This is a tip that came from a friend, and he bought a couple of Lemforder ball joints made in China, and when he removed the boots, there was absolutely no grease in there. I just inspected this one and there was a minimal amount of grease here. So let's see if this set is any better. So pop the clip up that holds the boot in place. Then the bottom one. So be careful not to damage the boot. So let's pull off the boot. And what do we have here? Look at that. Look at that sadness. Do you think that's a sufficient amount of grease for this ball joint to last, let's say, 50,000 kilometers? There's barely anything in there. Look at that. It's just, I can't believe it. Let's remove the other one as well. This one at least has something. This one here barely had something. All right, let's see this one. So this one here has a bit more grease. In my opinion, that's still not enough. It's something. And this one it's pretty much empty. There's a smidge of grease in there. It's just embarrassing. And there's nothing in the leather boot either. Look, it's damn near empty. I'm gonna put more grease in there and then reinstall the rubber boot, and that way these ball joints are going to last at least longer than they would have in the first place. So there's a hot tip, because the quality of brand new parts is absolutely shocking. You gotta double check everything. So remove the boots when you buy parts that are of suspicious quality. Just inspect them and add more grease, you know. So green. There you go. Put the boot back on. For example, TRW truss arm bushings that we're going to use later, I removed the boot on them, and they're made in Germany, and they were full of grease. I don't get the point of saving on grease. It's not that expensive. Gonna use the trick with a zip tie to put the clip back into place. So just run it around essentially. Now at least we know that there's enough grease here, and maybe these ball joints last longer. There are no other parts that we can use here, so it is what it is. So the center link going in, and you do gotta pay attention how you install this. There is a direction of orientation. I just spent 13 hours removing stupid stickers. Here, do up the bolt. Okay. The torque spec for the center link is 37 Newton meters. The tie rod. And now the most important part for the front suspension is to adjust the pitman arm correctly. So on this side you have the idler arm, which is in fixed position, it cannot be adjusted. And here we have the pitman arm that slides on the steering box shaft here, so you can move it up and down with the bolt loose. And what we need to do here is to make sure that the pitman arm is the same height as the idler arm. And if you get that wrong, if the pitman arm is too high or too low, it's going to affect the front suspension alignment and front suspension behavior. It's going to be very jumpy in the front end. If you get this wrong, you can't align it properly either. So this needs to be absolutely perfect in order to get really nice suspension in the front. So to adjust the pitman arm height, we need to use a special tool. Let me show you that. This is a special tool that we're going to use to adjust the height of the pitman arm. That's the part number. I bought this from the dealer and it wasn't that expensive, 100 to 150 euro. So the very first thing that we need to do is make sure that the steering box is right smack dab in the center, and you can see that the two marks are aligned on the cap and on the steering box. So this is where the control arm bushing bolts to the subframe. You have two holes here. If you have that installed, now it's the time to remove it, because this is the tool. This end here unscrews, and then this goes through the hole for the control arm bushing and screws into place like that. Make sure that's nice and tight. And then on the other end, you have this pin and this mandrel here. And what you want to do is center this in the middle of the ball joint. So push it all the way in, make sure it's straight, and then you can lock it into place And now essentially the entire tool is locked. We can remove it and copy the height of this ball joint on the other side, and that way we're going to be sure that the pitman arm is at the same height as the idler arm. It's quite simple, yet very effective. You can see here that the pin, the mandrel, I pushed it all the way inside of the ball joint, and it's actually touching the bottom of the shaft of the ball joint, and it's locked into place. And now we're going to remove the tool and copy its position on the other side. So this end is firmly locked into place. Now we can unscrew it here and remove it. So on this end, you can see that I can move the pitman arm up and down like this. So what we're gonna do now is push it all the way down, put the tool in and the pin inside of the ball joint, and then screw it into place. Now that it's nice and tight in place, we can set the pitman arm to correct height. So this is all the way down. If I start pushing it up, it's gonna hit the pin here and it's gonna stay in the exact same position as the idler arm on the other side. So that's the whole idea and how to make sure you have good alignment of the pitman arm. And now we can tighten the pitman arm bolt. The torque spec is 70 newton-meters. And that's it. That's how you adjust the pitman arm. If this car had a steering rack, this would have been much easier. With a steering box, you really have to pay attention to this stuff. Then we have this little heat shield that goes over the steering box. The heat shield bolts to the steering box. Let's see. I'm gonna pop this into place. You can see. There it is. You are through. Beautiful. And that's the heat shield in place. Time to assemble the front struts, and this coil, the spring, is the biggest spring I've seen in my life on a car. It's over 41 centimeters long. It's massive, which means we need a properly strong spring compressor. So enter the one from Hazit. It is beautiful. I love it. So first step is to compress the spring. So with this compressor, we can use an impact gun. There you go. So compressing this spring, it's like playing with a nuclear bomb. So let's do that. And you gotta compress it a lot to get it to fit on the strut. I hate this. I hate standing close to this. Got all brand new hardware here, original BMW parts. First step is to slip over the dust boot over this clip here, and that way the dust will not enter this area of the shock and potentially ruin the seal. That is very important. So a bit of silicone spray and then just slide it over. So that's clipped into place properly. Next, the bump stop, like so. Then we have this cup, zinc plated of course, and the lower spring pad. The end of the spring sits all the way in the end of the spring perch, unlike the later Zach shocks. Then we have the upper mount and the spring pad. And then brand new sugar nut and the cup. So let's start this dangerous process. To keep the spring pad from moving about, I'm going to use zip ties. So position it correctly. Need to compress the spring even more. Ooh. That feels wrong. Really, really wrong. I'm wearing eye protection as if that's going to save me if this thing pops. Yeah, we're still far off. And now tighten the sugar nut. All right, give it a good twist. That'll do. Now position the end of the spring, and then we can disarm the nuke. Yeah, if you're dealing with these springs, I do recommend you have a good spring compressor, because this is very, very dangerous, you know. There it is. And that's the spring installed. Sorry about the noise, but the airplanes are flying over every 30 seconds today. Powder coated brake shield and zinc plated nuts on which we need to apply a bit of blue thread locker. Ooh, I want to show you a new party trick because it's kind of difficult to start this bolt by hand. Look at this. I have little socket magnets from Hazard that go into the socket. Imagine that. And with that, I can put my bolt in there and it's gonna stay in the socket. How neat is that? Look at that. Beautiful. And then once I'm done, I can just push it out and put it back in the toolbox. Brilliant. And look at the variety, all the way up to 19. All magnets for the sockets. Love it. Love tools like this. We don't need to talk this to speculation, but what the hell? Let's do it. And now a bit of nitro on the nuts, so they stay good looking. Next we have this dust cap for the wheel bearing. It goes behind the wheel bearing, so this goes in first and then the wheel bearing. So we need to knock it into place. Great, that's fully seated. Next, the wheel bearing, and E31 uses two different flavors of wheel bearings. They call them asymmetric and symmetric, and what that determines is the position of the mounting screw for the brake disc. So if it's offset, you have asymmetric, and if it's like in the middle, then you have symmetric. My car uses asymmetric ones, and thankfully this is still available from BMW. It's brand new. Aftermarket, it's only available from Melee, I think. And I'd rather eat my own slippers than use Melee parts in this car. So brand new, original SKF wheel bearing. So now we need to knock it into place. Be careful here though, so you gotta knock on this surface here, otherwise you're gonna mess up the ball bearings inside. And you have this sleeve holding the two pieces together. See, it looks like this. Find a suitable cup and start banging on the inner race. So this should go in relatively easily, so gentle taps. So you don't have to bang it in all the way in, because a nut comes on top here and that will seat it all the way in properly. Brand new big sugar nut. And we'll torque this once it's on the car. The wheel speed sensation. This is the old one that I cleaned up. It's in good working order, and a brand new one is extremely expensive. So as long as this one works, we're gonna run it. A brand new screw. What the hell? 10 millimeters. Yeah, this part of wiring here had to be repaired slightly. We have a clip here that goes in like that. Then this one goes through there, like so. And then this one can go through here, right? Yep. Nah, it can go through there. Great. Then we have this rubber boot, which I cleaned up. This thing is just so beautifully engineered. Many, many years ago. No cost cutting. So then we have two clips here. So first mount that one. And then this one. And that clips into place like that. And that's the very first EDC strut from BMW assembled and ready to be installed. First we're gonna do this suspension cross member, which I've powder coated, and then this is powder coated zinc plate. I mean, you know the drill. Everything is brand new or better than brand new. That's how we roll here. So this goes like so. The suspension crossmember bolt 127 millimeters and the support bracket to body 59 millimeters. In it goes. There we go. Whew. That was a bit tricky. All right, we'll torque this up to spec a bit later. Let's first connect everything underneath. Next up, brand new original lower control arms. These are only available from BMW. That is if you want good quality parts. And then the thrust arms, I got the old stock from TRW/Lemforder that's made in Germany. So these are OE parts.
Then we have the so-called quick arms. These replace the stock arms to which the control arms and tie rods bolt to. They've been redesigned and produced by an E31 owner, Brian, to, as the name suggests, offer quicker steering. Slow steering is the Achilles heel of the 850i, and BMW actually used a steering box with a different ratio on the 850 CSI to address that. These arms are inexpensive in comparison, easy to install, and give an even better steering feel than CSI. It's a proper OEM Plus upgrade. The info is in the description. Thanks for making these, Brian.
Now, before we bolt up the quick arms to the struts, first we gotta install the lower control arm ball joint. Otherwise, if you install this to the strut now, then you won't be able to access this nut here to do up this ball joint. Ask me how I know. So this goes in there. We gotta start the nut. And because this is an old style control arm, it doesn't have a hex or Torx to hold the ball joint in place. So we're gonna move over to the vise over there and do up and torque this nut to spec. Tricky bit here is not to scratch anything, but essentially we need to press in the ball joint and stop it from spinning. So like that. And now we can start doing up the nut. All right, that'll do. Now I need to torque it to specs, so I need to flip it around. Let's see if I'll be able to do it. I think it's spinning, no? Nice. Quick arms going in, and be careful here, everything is site specific. So gotta line up the notch there. So, and start the bolt with thread locker applied. See what I mean? Now there's no way you can get to that nut to torque it. Now one bolt is going to be different because I either misplaced two of them or the zinc plating place did. So I had to buy two brand new ones. So each side is gonna have one bolt that's different. All right, we'll torque this to spec a bit later. First we gotta connect the rest of the suspension. Now I can connect the lower control arm, but because this is powder coated, it's gonna be a bit tricky to go in, you know. There it is. So we have a bolt, a washer, and then another washer, and the nut. Connect the tie rod. The thrust arm going in. Zinc plated bolt with a washer. All right, this is a rubber bushing, so we need to torque this with a suspension fully loaded. But the rest of it, it's ball joints and bolts, so let's torque that to spec now. Lower control arm, we have a ball joint here, which means we can torque it to spec now. And the spec is 77.5 millimeters. Now my torque wrench can't do half a millimeter, so I'm gonna do 78 instead. I just hope that BMW will forgive me and that this ball joint won't pop out suddenly while I'm driving. It's, you know, I mean, that half a millimeter can make a big, big difference. How did they even come up with that shit? 77.5 millimeters, right. Okay, that's great progress. Now I gotta copy paste on the other side. And that's this side done as well. Now I can torque the giant wheel bearing machinenet. The torque speculation is 290 millimeters. All right, you ready? Easy. Bend the tab. Great. So gotta make sure that the wheel bearing spins freely. And finally the cap. Done. Now we can route the EDC and brake pad wear sensor wiring. like so. Gonna use one zip tie there because this plastic is a little bit broken and there are no replacement parts. And now we can connect them up here. Naked wire is gonna fix that. Fantastic. The strut mount, 24 Newton metros. And lastly, brand new caps. There it is. Next up, a powder coated sway bar, bushings, and links. You can use a bit of silicone spray, it's not gonna hurt it. All right, the repair manual says to torque the sway bar bushings with the suspension loaded, which I don't think it makes a lot of difference because the sway bar, you know, moves anyway. But we'll follow what the repair manual says and do it that way. Finger tight for now, and then we'll torque it up once we move the car on the 4-post lift. The sway bar link. So we have a washer on the top here, and then the nut from the other side. And then here, just a nut. Beautiful. Oh, loving that. I would torque my life to spec if I could. I am thoroughly enjoying restoring this car. Loving every step of it. It's been an enormous fun. But with that said, that's the suspension done. Can you believe it? Do you even remember what this thing looked like when I took it apart? It spent over 10 years in a garden. It looked terrible. And look at it now. It's mint. It's brand new. I love it. I love it so much. I almost don't want to use this car now. Maybe just leave it on the lift here, drink beer underneath, and just keep looking at this majestic sight. Before I reinstall all of the plastic covers, I'm gonna bomb the entire area with Dinitral transparent protection, just to make sure all these nuts and bolts and, you know, all the nice and shiny things stay shiny. We have an air duct here. That goes like that. So some of this trim is available brand new, so whatever I could get brand new, I did. Like this piece here, which goes like that. And then of course, brand new screws. So first to line it up on the bottom. There it is. Brand new wheel liner. We have a cover here. Another brand new part. Beautiful. And actually all of this will be coming off for when the car goes for paint, but for the first drive, we need all of these covers. I'm gonna do the same thing in the rear, and then we can finally do the brakes.
As we up the engine power, we got up the braking power too. I scooped up a set of very sought after old school 80 4-pot calipers off of a late Eurospec E32 750i. They are very similar, if not the same as 850 CSI calipers, and an upgrade over stock single piston 850i calipers. They are a direct plug and play with stock discs.
There we are. Let's see if the pistons are frozen. Okay, those are good. Good as well. Need to plug that, and then this can go for sandblasting. That's the calipers sandblasted. Now I'm going to take them apart completely, degrease them, and prep them for paint.
You've seen me rebuild calipers numerous times. The drill is as follows. Strip down the caliper completely and pop out the pistons.
Careful when doing that, and woo, that brake fluid is nasty. Look at that. That's why we're rebuilding the calipers. Take the seal out. And now these calipers. Pistons look in nice shape. Oof, the seal is not good. The bores inside are in good condition, which is important. Okay, time to degrease the calipers. I have nitro here, the greaser. Gonna dump the caliper in. Let it sit for a minute, and then clean it thoroughly, blow it out with compressed air, rinse and repeat, more brake cleaner, let it dry, and then we're gonna be ready to paint. That's the calipers degreased and prepped for paint. From the factory back in the day, these calipers would have been yellow zinc plated, so the finish would look like this. Now, I don't want to zinc plate them because that's just not going to last. The brake dust is going to eat them alive, and within a year, this is going to look like crap. So we're going to paint them. The closest color that I can get to this finish is bronze metallic from Foliatech. This is a 2-component spray, so we're going to spritz them up in this color, and I think it should look bang on because we have a Calypso Red E31 with French yellow headlights and then bronze calipers. Should look pretty good. So let's head over to the paint booth and start the paint process. Welcome back to the paint booth. As you can see, I fixed the fuse. We're good to go. Look at that technology. And here's the final result. It looks great. I like the color. I thought it would be a bit brighter, but it actually works quite well because it's not going to stick out. You know, it's going to look subtle, which is what I want. The calipers are well dry because on the video it's been probably about a second. In real life it's been over a month. And I've been to Florida and back and done quite a lot of stuff in the meantime. Anyway, let's assemble the calipers.
I'm removing the masking tape and plugs to blow out the caliper with compressed air once again. The software I had zinc plated and then got all brand new parts, which are a mix of what's available. So original, OE, ATE and out-of-friend parts. First, pop in the seals. These calipers have smaller and larger pistons on each side, therefore the seals are different as well. Here you gotta make sure the seal is installed correctly and not bound up or twisted. Next, slide the dust boot over the piston and pull the boot down to make sure it sits correctly in the piston groove. I'm using ATE brake assembly grease and applying it to the seals and pistons. This will allow the piston to slide in easily. Then gently press down on the boot to get it to clip into place. Brand new hard line, which is still available from BMW. Zinc plated bleed screws. And a cap. And that's the front caliper done. Same dealio on the deal with the rear ones, except here the boot clips on the inside, so you have to slide the rubber over the piston and position it towards the bottom of it to where it's slightly overhanging. Then first clip the boot into the caliper, and then as you push the piston in, the boot will clip itself into the piston groove. Simple and easy way to do it. Pop in the guide pin bushings. Helps to use a bit of silicone spray here. The guide pins, per BMW repair manual, I'm installing them grease-free. Grease attracts dirt, so BMW doesn't want you to use any, but I've done it both ways, and both ways work just fine, so go with your preference. And that's caliper rebuild done. And here's everything ready to go, and I gotta say, I'm really growing to like this bronze paint. Calipers turned out mint. Also got some stainless steel braided lines that have OE looking outer protection, and then stock pads and brake discs.
Cleaned up. Hub paste only on the lip. A brand new screw. The caliper. And zinc plated bolts, as you do. Lube up the pads and the sliding surface here. And then pop the pins into place. The brake pad wear sensor. And then it connects here. Now there's a little clip here. And now you can clip the cable into place like that. The brake line. Beautiful. Scusi, I know I'm blocking the camera, but what are you gonna do? I gotta see before you can see. Does that make sense? A clean flat wrench. Give it a nice good twist. Beautiful. Now that looks hot. Ah, indeed. I like it. I like it a lot. Great choice for the brakes. Period correct.
Next up, the parking brake sneakers and related software.
First, we gotta hook up the expanding lock to the cable. So pull out the cable a little bit. And then you have this pin that kind of holds it in place. And then this goes like that. Then the shoe. Line it up there. Then the other side. It's the second one installed. Pop in the cog. Good. And now the springs. The thicker spring goes on the bottom. So line up that and then hook one end and then use a screwdriver to get it into place. Like that. Make sure that this lock is properly installed on the bottom. And then the same deal here. Hook up one end. And that's the parking brake shoes installed. The disc. Now I'm going to go in the cabin and tighten the parking brake cable, and then we can start adjusting the parking brake shoes. Okay, I pulled the handbrake by 2 clicks, and now we need to spread the shoes to the point where we can feel some resistance when we turn the disc. A bit more, I would say. Yep, now I can feel some resistance. And now when we pull it to 3rd click, we shouldn't be able to turn it. Nope. All right, after jumping around like a billy goat, here's what we have. Parking brake released. No resistance. Then we do 2 clicks. 1, 2. There should be some drag, some resistance. And then when we engage the 3rd click, we shouldn't be able to move it, or at least very difficult, yeah. So that's parking brake shoes adjusted correctly. But what I like to do is, since everything is brand new, after a few hundred kilometers, I'm gonna come back in and just recheck that everything is still good. But for now, that's dandy. Liquid moly brake paste. I cleaned up the sliding surfaces on the caliper bracket. Gonna put a bit of paste there. And the other one is not accessible with a torque wrench, so bring out the electric torque wrench and then torque it to spec. Beautiful. Lube up the pads. These have a soft anti-squeal backing on the back, so we don't need to apply any paste there, just on the sliding edges. Pop it into the caliper. And this one will do it by hand. Can't fit the torque wrench in here. Don't forget the caps. And let's do the brake line while we're here. Perfect. I ran out of yellow zinc plated ones. The neutral, especially on the bolt there, the nut. And now the clip. And that's the rear brakes done.
Time to bleed the brakes, and for that I'm using a pressure bleeder and .4 brake fluid from Liquimali.
.348 psi of pressure. Now I'm gonna check for leaks, and then we're gonna start bleeding each corner, and then we need to bleed the clutch line as well.
This car does have an ABS system and therefore an ABS pump, but no special tools are needed to bleed the system. Besides using the power bleeder, I am also pressing on the brake pedal around 8 to 10 times on each corner. This helps bleed the system properly and thoroughly.
Fantastic. Mutsy's back! The cutest little dog in the world. Yes. How you doing, Mutsy? It's been a while, huh? Haven't seen her in 4 months. I think Mutsy wants chicken. Isn't that so, Mutsy? Okay, okay. Easy. Chicken, Mutsy. Mutsy, chicken? Good, Mutsy? No? She's more interested in snacks now. Mutsy loves to sit in my lap. No more chicken. No mas. Okay, Mutsy, playtime is over. Playtime is over. And lastly, we gotta bleed the clutch line, which isn't that easy, you know? There we go. It is flowing. So I'm gonna continue doing this, then I gotta climb up top, pump the clutch pedal a few times, then crack open the bleed screw and rinse and repeat until we have a nice firm clutch pedal. Oh yes! We're gonna have a beautiful clutch. That's good, Mutsy. Très magnifique. Clutch line bleeding completed. The torculation for the output shaft nut is 300 Newton meters. I engage the parking brake and I also engage the brakes. And let's see if that'll be enough to stop the hub from spinning, but I also need to put 2 wheel bolts there, otherwise it's just a tiny bolt holding the brake disc in place. And that ain't good. Hook, let's see. Give it everything. Oh. Ah, beautiful. Yeah, bend the tabs. I'm so strong. I think it's time for wheels. And finally, the wheels. Oh, the wheels. I give you this. A true rarity. These are original Alpina E31 wheels, 17-inch, genuine for the E31 from the factory from Alpina. Uber rare, and I spent a lot of time looking for them, and then subsequently I spent a lot of money to buy them. They arrived poorly repainted, so I had them refurbed again back to original Alpina color, and they look beautiful. And then our good friends from Michelin provided this brilliant rubber Pilot Sport 4. I mean, it's, you know, it's not only going to look good now, it's going to ride splendidly as well. I was considering CSI wheels, you know, the throwing stars, but in my opinion, they only work if the rest of the car has the CSI kit, and I'm not so sure that that's what this car will have. And if you remember the abandoned dealership video that I did in Tarragona, there was a green E31 with Alpina wheels. And when I saw that in person, I was sold. And I said to myself, Project Marseille has to have that. It looks so damn good. So here we are. Big thank you to Michelin for providing these fantastic tires. I mean, I only want what's best for my cars. And when it comes to tires, Michelin is at the very top. All right, let's protect them and put them on the car.
I forgot to order ceramic coating for the rims, so we are going to use Geon Wax instead. First, prep the surface. And then wax away, my friend.
Yeah, waxing the wheels. It's so satisfying.
Let it sit for around 30 minutes and then buff it out. Lastly, Q-tire dressing from Geon, and I like to buff it out to a matte finish.
Gotta protect the precious caliper. Now, I did successfully forget to buy brand new wheel bolts, but don't worry, Coco, I'll order some. Does the wheel clear the caliper? It sure does, good sir. Pull out the carbon fiber towel. There we go. And scratch the calipers. Isn't that perfect, Mitzi? This is a huge moment, actually. Putting the wheels back on the car. Whew. Did I tell you that I'm excited? Now tell me that wasn't a perfect color choice for the calipers. It looks fantastic up against the red and beautiful silver Alpino wheels. Man, that looks good. I know, let's see, it does look good. May have had a beer or 5. Cheers, my friend. Cheers. Careful now, Mitzi. I may have had a moment. All right, time to lower Project Marseille onto its 4 wheels. Oh, that feels good. That feels so good. It's been on this lift for 2 years.
Yep, it's now worthy of having a beer or 4 underneath and just admiring the view. I am glowing with excitement and joy at how beautiful this machine turned out. This really is a huge milestone with this project. In the next episode, we are going to torque all suspension rubber bushings to speculation and go for a drive. It'll be the first drive in 14 years for Project Marseille, and that's going to be very special. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Tschüss!